John Dalen lived alone on a moon called Rhea 9. It was quiet there. The sky was always dark, filled with stars that blinked gently above his metal-roofed outpost. John didn't mind the silence. He liked it. He had machines to talk to and stars to fix. Long ago, Earth built machines that could bring dying stars back to life. Those machines were lost over time, but John had learned how to rebuild them. Nobody else remembered how, not even the great tech universities of Mars or the sky cities of Titan. People sometimes called John the Star Healer. They sent broken star maps and requested help. John would look, send back blueprints, and return to his work. He didn't care much for fame. He just liked fixing what was broken. On one strange night, something unusual happened. A soft, golden light shot across the sky. It wasn't a star. It moved too fast and fell too low. It crashed in the valley near his outpost. The ground shook a little. Then silence returned. John stared at the sky from his control room. "That's new," he said. He put on his coat, grabbed a scanner, and stepped outside. The valley was dark, but the strange object glowed. It wasn't metal. It wasn't stone either. It looked like glass melted into a soft shape. A figure lay beside it, tall, glowing faintly, with skin that shimmered like moonlight on water. John paused. This was no human. He moved closer. The figure, a woman, was breathing, but weak. Her body flickered like a dying signal. Her hair floated slightly, like it didn't fully belong to this world. John didn't run. He didn't scream. He knelt beside her. "Can you hear me?" he asked. Her eyes fluttered open. They were bright gold, full of light. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, only sound like distant wind. Then she fainted again. John stared, for a moment, then stood up. "Well," he said softly, "I guess I'm taking you home." Back at the outpost, John carefully placed her on the med bed. His scanner blinked red. Too many unknowns. Her cells didn't match any species in the database. Her heart didn't beat like a normal one. But somehow she lived. She slept for 2 days. John stayed nearby. He worked, fixed an old satellite, baked bread, and checked the scanner every few hours. On the 3rd morning, she woke up. Her eyes opened slowly. She sat up fast, confused, scanning the room. "It's okay," John said gently, holding out a hand. "You're safe." She stared at him. Then, for the first time, spoke. "Erin," she said softly. "My name is Erin." Her voice was clear, calm, like music spoken slow. John nodded. "Nice to meet you, Erin. I'm John." She looked around. "Where am I?" "Rhea 9, a quiet moon. No crowds, no noise. Just me and a lot of stars to fix." Erin blinked slowly. "You are human." "That's right." She looked down at her glowing hands, then back at him. "I did not expect kindness. Not here." John shrugged. "Well, sometimes kindness just shows up where it's not expected." Over the next few days, Erin began to recover. She could walk again and speak more clearly. She had many questions about John, about humans, about why he lived alone. John wasn't much of a talker, but he answered her questions simply. "I used to work with others," he said, "but I like things quiet now. Out here, I can think. I can fix things without anyone shouting in my ear." "And the stars?" Erin asked. "I fix them because I can. They're old, they burn out, but sometimes they just need someone to care." Erin watched him often. She had seen thousands of worlds, but she had never seen someone like John. Not because of power, not because of weapons, but because of his patience. He moved slow. He spoke soft. He never asked her for anything. One evening, they sat outside, looking up at the stars. Erin turned to him. "Do you know what I am?" John looked at her glowing eyes. "Not exactly. You don't show up on any scans. And your body seems different." "I come from the space between galaxies," she said. "Far from your known systems. I was once called a goddess by many." John raised an eyebrow. "A goddess?" "I watched the rise and fall of stars. I guided fleets before your son was born. But then, I ran." "From what?" She didn't answer right away. "A darkness that eats time. Something even light cannot fight. I came here because I thought this place was forgotten." John looked at her for a long time. Then simply said, "Well, you're not alone anymore." She looked at him, surprised. "You believe me?" He shrugged. "You glow. You don't eat much. You speak like a book. Sounds believable to me." Erin laughed softly the first time. She'd smiled in years. That night, as she stood by the window watching him repair an old transmitter, she felt something strange. In all her endless life, across countless stars and empires, she had never felt calm. Not like this. And she thought, to herself. John woke up early, as he always did. The sky above Rhea 9 was dark, but peaceful. Stars sparkled gently, and the wind made soft music through the rocks. He made tea and fixed his tools for the day. But something felt different. Irene was already awake. She stood near the edge of the cliff, her hands behind her back, looking at the stars above. The wind blew through her glowing hair, and her body shimmered lightly, like starlight wrapped in a soft shape. John walked over slowly. "You sleep less than me." She turned with a calm smile. "I don't sleep the way you do, just rest. I listen to the sky." John nodded. "Find anything interesting up there?" "Yes," she said. "Your stars are quiet. They sing slow songs. I think I like them." He smiled. "They're old, like me." "You are not old," she replied gently. "You are human." They walked together back to the outpost. John made her tea again, though she didn't really need it. She said the warmth felt nice. She sat on a crate and watched him fix a broken drone. "You do this every day?" she asked. "Fix things?" "Yeah, most days." "Why?" John paused. "Because things break, and someone needs to care enough to fix them." Erin looked down at her hands. "No one ever fixed me." "You were just lost," John said, tightening a wire. "Not broken." She looked at him. "Do you really believe that?" "Yes." As days passed, Erin began learning more about human life. She asked questions about everything: how bread rises, why people cry, what music means. John answered every question, even the strange ones. He showed her how to bake. She tried, burned the first loaf, then laughed for a full minute. Her laughter echoed across the valley like chimes. She liked sitting near his old radio when he played Earth music. One song made her cry, even though she didn't understand the words. She said it reminded her of a lost planet full of silver oceans. John didn't ask too many questions. She liked that. Irene had lived for ages, but on Rhea 9 time moved differently. It moved gently. One afternoon, Irene helped him repair a solar panel. She was careful, though the tools felt strange in her hands. "You could be anywhere," John said. "You've seen galaxies. You've flown between stars. Why stay here?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "Because you didn't ask me to leave." He looked at her. "You didn't ask what I could give you." She continued, "You didn't ask me to show you power. You simply gave me tea and a warm place to rest. That has never happened before." John smiled a little. "I guess I'm strange." She looked at him kindly. "No, you're rare." Later that night, a quiet storm passed over the moon. Wind shook the windows. Erin stood by the door, watching the sky flicker with silver lightning. John handed her a blanket. "Cold?" "No," she said, taking it anyway. "Just thinking." He sat beside her on the floor, watching the sky. "I've lived for so long," she whispered. "Across light years and ages. I've walked through supernovas and seen stars born in silence. But I never stayed anywhere. Why not? Because no place ever felt like it would miss me." John didn't say anything. He simply looked at her and said, "I would." Erin turned to him slowly. Her eyes softened. "You would?" "Yes," he said, quietly but clearly. "If you left, this place would feel empty." She didn't speak again. But that night, she didn't go back to her own room. She sat near the control deck beside John's chair, watching the sky until morning. The next few days passed with quiet warmth. Erin started helping more. She rewired an old scanner, repaired a signal tower, and even painted the rusted storage. Tanks outside the lab with soft, glowing shapes. John never asked what they meant, but he liked them. Erin also began writing. She took an old journal from the shelf and filled it with glowing letters in a language John had never seen before. "What is that?" he asked. "Memories," she said. "I forget things if I don't write them. Not because I'm weak, because I've lived through too much." He nodded. "I'm writing this moon down," she added, "so I don't forget how quiet peace can be." One evening, John took her to the mountain's peak. They sat on a high rock, wind brushing past their faces. He handed her an old telescope. "I used to look through this as a kid," he said. "Thought I'd find something no one else had seen." "Did you?" she asked. "Yes," he said, smiling at her. "One day I saw you fall from the sky." She looked into the telescope, hiding her face. "Your kindness confuses me," she whispered. "Why?" "Because you don't want anything in return." "Erin," he said, "some people give not because they want something back, but because it's the right thing to do." She turned to him with a look full of quiet wonder. "I have watched empires rise, John. I've seen golden kings and silent queens, but never have I met someone like you." He looked at her gently. "I'm just a man who fixes broken stars." "No," she said. "You're a man who heals people without even knowing." That night, as stars blinked gently over Rhea 9, Irine sat beside the old telescope, wrapped in her soft light. She whispered into the wind, "Maybe I won't leave tomorrow." And for the first time in centuries, she meant it. Each morning on Rhea 9 began the same way. A soft light from the twin suns peeked over the low hills. The sky stayed mostly dark, but the soft orange light added warmth to the silent valley. John Dalen always woke early, and now Irene often joined him. She had stopped glowing as much. Her body felt more solid now. Her steps were slower but more human. John noticed, but never asked why. One morning, Irene stood near the cooking table, staring at a bag of flour. John raised an eyebrow. "Thinking of baking again?" "I want to try alone," she said proudly. John chuckled. "Go ahead. The kitchen is yours." She tied back her long silver hair and began mixing. She added too much water, then forgot the salt. The dough stuck. To her fingers, to the table, even to her face. She didn't mind. When the loaf came out too flat, she bit into it, made a face, and laughed so loudly that even John couldn't help but smile. That was worse than before, she said, laughing. "Progress," John replied. Later that day, John showed her how to clean a solar panel. "You move so carefully," Irene said. "If I hurry, I break something," he replied. "Better to take time." She watched closely. Then she tried. Her fingers still glowed a little, but she focused hard. By sunset, she had cleaned 2 panels herself. "I did it," she said, surprised. "You're learning." "I never needed to learn anything before," she admitted. "I just knew things." "Well," John said, wiping sweat from his face, "now you know what it feels like to earn it." Irene looked at her hands. "It feels good." That night they sat by the outpost fire. John rarely used it, but Irene liked the flames. She looked at him. "John, may I ask something strange?" "Go ahead." "When humans are hurt, they cry." "What is the purpose of this?" John thought for a while. "It's not for the body, it's for the heart. Sometimes the heart feels too full, and crying is the way it lets go." Irene looked down. "I've never cried until I came here." "You miss something?" "Yes," she said quietly. "I miss things that I never gave time to love. Planets I passed, songs I never stopped to hear." John didn't speak, but his silence was kind. "I wish I had met someone like you long ago," Irene whispered. John simply said, "I'm glad you're here now." Over the next few weeks, Irene changed more. She asked John to teach her how to plant food. She dug the dry soil, placed seeds, and even chased off a wild wind lizard that tried to eat the sprouts. She smiled more. She listened to rain with wonder, like it was music from another world. John also noticed something else. She no longer looked like a glowing figure from the stars. She looked human, still graceful, still unusual, but warm and real. When she smiled, her eyes didn't shine like stars. They shone like joy. One afternoon, John found her standing at the mirror. She was holding a shirt he had given her. "Do I look strange now?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "You look like you belong here." She turned away quickly, but John saw the small tear run down her cheek. One evening, as the stars filled the sky, John took her up the mountain trail. It was a quiet climb, and the wind moved gently through the rocks. At the top, he showed her something she hadn't seen. "Before a glowing flower, what is it?" she asked. "A moon bloom," he said. "Only grows up here. Only blooms when it hears music." "Music?" John pulled out a small device. He played an old earth tune, soft, calm, almost like a lullaby. The flower opened slowly, glowing a gentle blue. Iron stared in wonder. "It's beautiful. Just like you," John said without thinking. She turned, surprised. John looked away, embarrassed, but she smiled. Back at the outpost, Iron painted again. This time on the side of the main building. She used her fingers and strange colors made from stardust and plants. John came out and stood beside her. "What is it?" he asked. She stepped back. On the wall was a picture of two figures, one glowing like the stars, the other simple and human. They stood side by side, surrounded by stars and flowers. "That's us?" John asked. "Yes," she said. "You made me taller than I am?" Iron laughed. "Art allows small lies." John smiled. "You're really staying, aren't you?" Iron looked at him. "I think I already have." But late one night, Iron stood outside, staring at the stars. Her hands trembled. The wind whispered strange things. A low hum echoed through the sky, almost too soft to hear. John came out quietly. "What is it?" "I felt something," she said, her voice worried. "Far away but moving closer. Something old and dangerous." John nodded. "From your world?" "Not mine, but from beyond it." He didn't panic. He just said, "We'll face it. Together." She looked at him with a mixture of fear and love. "John, you don't know what's coming." "I don't need to." "You're here. That's enough." She wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because she finally understood what it meant to be human. Not because of pain or weakness or limits, but because of love. And somewhere in the middle of the silent stars, something dark stirred. But for now, on Rhea 9, a goddess and a man sat together under the quiet sky, holding on to the only truth they knew. Sometimes forever begins with a single choice to stay. For many weeks, life on Rhea 9 remained peaceful. Iron and John continued their simple routine, fixing machines, planting seeds, watching stars, and sharing quiet moments. The outpost felt less like a station now, and more like a home. But Iron could feel it. Something was coming. Each night, she sat outside for hours staring at the sky. Her hands trembled. Her glow, once soft and warm, began to flicker. John noticed the change. He didn't ask right away. He knew she would tell him when she was ready. But he started working longer hours in the lab. He began building things again. Old defenses, sensor, systems, even power shields that hadn't worked in years. One morning, Iron stood behind him while he fixed an old turret. "You believe me now?" she asked softly. "I always believed you," John replied. "Now I'm just preparing." "For what?" "For whatever scared someone like you." That night the sky turned strange. Stars began to dim, not vanish, but pulse like they were afraid. The wind carried a low hum too deep for normal ears, but Iron could feel it in her bones. "They're close," she said. "Much closer than I hoped." "Who?" John asked. Iron took a deep breath. "The Null." John had heard many strange names in his life, but this one felt different. He repeated it slowly. "Null. They are not alive like you," she said. "Not made of matter or light or thought. They are silence itself, a hunger. They travel through the cracks between stars. They erase, not destroy. And they're looking for you?" "Yes," she said, her voice low. "I ran from them. I thought I could hide here." John folded his arms. You can't run forever. I know. He looked at her. Then we'll fight. Erin turned to him, shocked. John, you're human. One man. You don't understand what they are. They eat timelines. They bend space. You can't stop them. He gave a small smile. You keep saying that, but I'm still here. The next day, John activated every system on the outpost. Old alarms, shield emitters, defense drones, all of it. Most of the equipment was rusty, some missing parts, but he worked with calm hands. Erin watched him, amazed. You're not afraid? Of course I am, he said. But I'd rather stand with you than run without you. Erin looked down. I've never had someone stay with me during danger. They always asked for power or protection. You ask for nothing. I ask for one thing, John said. What? Don't leave. Erin felt tears in her eyes. She nodded. Later, that night the sky opened, not like a crack, but a long, dark tear across the stars. It looked like space itself had been sliced open. From that darkness came silence. Not peaceful silence, but the heavy kind, like something had stolen all sound. John stood at the edge of the cliff, looking up. That's them? He asked. Yes, Erin said quietly. They are not ships. They are not even alive in the way you understand. They are the memory of nothingness. John didn't answer. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small remote. Then we hit them with everything. Erin's eyes widened. What is that? Old Earth tech. A light cannon. I repaired it last year just in case I ever needed to scare off pirates. This is no pirate. I know. As the dark sky bent downward, strange shapes began to form. Long, twisting shadows that didn't move like anything natural. They stretched toward the moon like fingers, silent and slow. John pressed the button. From the mountaintop, a massive burst of white light shot into the sky. It struck the nearest shadow. For a second it stopped, then it began to pull back. It worked, John shouted, but then the shadow grew larger. Erin stepped forward. Her eyes glowed brightly again, her body lifting off the ground slightly. You've done enough, she said. Now I must do what only I can. No, John said, not alone. I must, she said gently. They know me. They follow me. If I don't stop them, they will erase you too. John's fists tightened. I won't let that happen. Erin turned to him, pain in her eyes. Then trust me. She rose into the sky, glowing brighter than she ever had before. Her voice echoed through the valley, not in words, but in light. Symbols danced in the air, old codes, older than language. The shadows paused. They recognized her. Erin stretched out her hands. A wave of light moved through the sky. It hit the dark tear, and for a moment, silence cracked. But the null did not flee. They responded. A wave of pure blackness rushed forward. John watched from below, heart pounding. He ran back into the lab and started up every power source he had. The shield turned red, barely holding. He grabbed the old radio and shouted, Erin, come back! She didn't answer. She kept fighting, but her light was fading. John did the only thing he could. He opened the chamber at the back of the lab. Inside was an old core, once used to restart suns. He'd never dared to activate it. Before, it was too unstable. But now, he dragged it out and aimed it at the sky. He wired it into the defense system. Sparks flew. Heat burst from the machine. It started to glow. "Erin!" he shouted. "If you can hear me, move away!" A moment later, her voice reached his mind. "What are you doing?" "Helping," he said. "That core will destroy you. It might save you." "John, no." But it was too late. John pressed the final switch. A massive beam of light shot from the mountain. Not just light, energy, old and deep, the kind that once lit dying galaxies. It struck the tear in the sky. The darkness screamed, not in sound, but in pressure. The sky twisted. The nulls shrank, then vanished into their own shadow. The tear closed. Silence returned. John collapsed beside the machine. Smoke rose around him. His arm was burned, his vision blurry. Then soft hands touched his face. Erin knelt beside him, glowing once more, but not like before. Her glow was warm, human. "You're alive," she said softly. He smiled weakly. "Wasn't planning to go just yet. You used a star core. For me. For us," he whispered. She placed her forehead against his. "You're not just human, John. You're what makes humanity worth saving." And for the first time in 1,000 years, she cried for joy. The stars had returned to their places, blinking gently in the dark sky. The tear that had opened in space was gone. The null were silent once more, but not everything had returned to normal. John lay in the medical bed inside the outpost, wires, gently connected to his chest and arm. His body was weak. His hand was burned. His breathing was slow but steady. Erin sat beside him. Her hands rested on his, her silver hair falling across her shoulder. She no longer glowed like a being from the stars. She looked like a woman, gentle, still, real. She hadn't left his side since the night he saved her. John opened his eyes slowly. His vision was blurry at first, but he saw the familiar ceiling above him, the old lights, the metal panels, the cracked corner. Then, her face. "Erin," he whispered. She smiled gently. "You're awake. You're here." "Of course," she said softly. "Where else would I be?" He tried to sit up. She placed a hand on his chest. "Not yet. Your body is healing." "How long?" 3 days, she replied. John sighed. "Felt like forever." Erin looked down. "For me, it almost was." After a few hours, John was strong enough to sit up. He drank warm soup while Erin sat across from him, quietly watching. "You shouldn't have used that core," she said. "It was too dangerous." "It worked," John said with a faint smile. "And you're safe. That's what matters." "But you almost died." "I've been alone most of my life, Erin, but after meeting you, I wasn't ready to go back to that." She looked at him, her eyes full of light and emotion. "You changed something inside me, John. You gave me something I thought I would never feel again." "What's that?" "Home." Later that day, Erin walked with John through the garden. The plants were growing well, small green sprouts breaking through the soil. The sky was peaceful, with thin clouds and a soft breeze. "I was never meant to stay in one place," Erin said. "I was created to move, to protect the balance between stars. I had no time for rest, no space for feelings." "And now?" John asked. "Now I want to feel," she said. "Now I want to stay." He looked at her. "You don't have to be human to live a human life." She nodded slowly. but I want to understand it. Truly. John reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal ring. It wasn't shiny. It was simple, made from spare parts and old wiring. I made this for you, he said. Aaron looked at the ring with wonder. What is it? It's a promise, John said. It doesn't mean forever. It means I'm here, and I choose you, every day. She held the ring like it was made of stars. That night, Aaron sat outside, writing in her glowing journal. John sat nearby, watching the stars. Do you miss your world? He asked. I don't know if I had one, she replied. I traveled too much. I was too busy being powerful. But here I'm just Aaron. You're more than just anything, John said. You're strong, kind, curious. You're everything good the stars forgot. She closed the book and looked at him. Do you think the null will come back? John was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Maybe. Maybe not. But if they do, we'll face them together. She nodded. Not as goddess and human, just two people. Two hearts, John said. As days passed, word about Rhea 9 began to spread. A few small ships visited the edge of the system. Pilots and travelers spoke of a strange glow they saw in the sky the night the null came and vanished. They said someone on that moon had done the impossible. Some said it was a hidden weapon. Others whispered it was a forgotten god. But John and Aaron didn't care for those stories. They continued planting, building, and restoring. One day, Aaron found an old, broken music box in the storage room. She spent hours fixing it. When she finally turned the handle, it played a soft tune. Simple and slow, John listened with closed eyes. That was my mother's song, he said. Aaron smiled. Now it's ours. But not everything was easy. John's arm never fully healed. He wore a brace now, and Aaron helped him with heavy work. One morning, while repairing the satellite dish, it slipped from his hands. Damn it, he muttered. Aaron caught it before it hit the ground. Let me help. He sat down, frustrated. I used to be strong, he said. Fast. I could fix anything. You still can, she replied. Just differently. He looked at her. You're not just staying because you feel sorry for me, right? She laughed softly. No, John. I'm staying because, with you, I'm finally living. On the 1-year mark since the Null attack, they held a small celebration, just the two of them. John cooked a quiet meal. Aaron brought out 2 small lanterns she made from glass and stardust. They floated gently in the air above the table, giving off a soft light. They sat under the stars, holding hands, saying nothing for a long while. Then Aaron said, The galaxy is big. People are always rushing somewhere. But here, time slows. John looked at her and said, Because here, time finally matters. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and for that one moment, in a galaxy full of dying stars, 2 hearts beat in rhythm, one once from Earth, one once from the stars, and together they made something stronger than light, hope. The wind no longer carried whispers from the stars. The shadows had stopped moving in strange patterns. The sky was quiet, and so were the nights. But inside Irene, something had changed, not in a bad way. It was something she could not explain, like the feeling of standing on a frozen lake and realizing slowly that it has begun to crack beneath your feet, not in fear, in readiness. She had been here for 1 year, and for the first time in her long, endless life, She had stopped counting time. John was different too. His hair was a little more gray. His hands didn't move as fast, but his smile had become warmer and his eyes calmer. He no longer rushed to fix every machine the moment it broke. Sometimes he left the small things broken. He said it gave them character. Every evening, he and Irene sat together on the ridge above the outpost, watching the suns set behind the mountains. They rarely spoke during those moments. They didn't need to. Silence between them had become a language. One morning, something strange happened. John woke early, as usual. He reached for the kettle but stopped. Everything was still, not quiet. Still, like the world had forgotten how to move. The wind wasn't blowing. The machines were paused. Even the plants in the garden stood perfectly straight, as if frozen. John stepped outside. Erin was already there. She was barefoot, standing in the garden. Her eyes were wide, her hands open. "Irene?" John called. She didn't turn. He walked toward her. "What is it?" She finally spoke, softly. "Time has stopped." He looked around. She was right. The sun hadn't moved. Even the birds in the sky above hung like drawings in the air. "Why?" he asked. "I don't know," she whispered. "But it's listening." John didn't understand. "Time is listening?" "Yes," she said, now looking at him. "Something old and deep has paused everything. Just for us. I can feel it." They sat together on the bench near the outpost, looking out across the still world. The sky was frozen in golden light. Even the dust in the air didn't fall. Erin held John's hand. "Maybe this is a gift." "A gift from who?" "I don't know," she said. "From the stars, from the galaxy, from life itself." John chuckled. "I don't usually get gifts." She smiled. "Then it's about time." As they sat in the stillness, memories came back to both of them. John remembered his childhood. His first broken radio. His first love. The way Earth used to smell before the storms. The people he had lost. The silence that followed them. Erin remembered star paths. Forgotten galaxies. The sound of old songs sung by civilizations that no longer existed. She remembered being alone, truly alone, for thousands of years. She looked at John. "I was never supposed to stop moving," she said. "Never supposed to fall in love. That was not part of my existence. But you did." "Yes," she said softly. "And I do, every day." They walked through the valley together. Each step was soft, silent, like walking through a dream. "Will time start again?" John asked. "I think so," Irene said. "But not until we're ready." John looked up at the frozen sky. "Then let's not be ready too soon," she laughed. Agreed. They spent that timeless day doing simple things. Cooking, cleaning, the tool shed, watering the garden even though nothing grew while time was paused. It didn't matter. They danced to a silent rhythm in the hallway. They sat and read old books. Irene told John stories about stars that spoke in colors and planets where time moved backward. He told her about Earth games and the feeling of rain on your face. They wrote in her glowing journal together. They made new memories, memories that would not be lost in space or swallowed by silence. That evening, as they sat again on the ridge, John took a deep breath. "I'm not afraid anymore," he said. "Of what?" she asked. "Of endings." Erin turned toward him, eyes full of light. Because of me? No, he said. Because of us. She leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Then maybe this is the real beginning. A soft wind moved. Through the trees, John sat up straight. Erin, did you feel that? She nodded. Time is returning. Slowly, the sun continued its journey behind the hills. The air moved again. The birds above flapped their wings and flew forward. Life began moving, but it was gentle, like time itself had been touched by what it had seen. As night returned to Rhea 9, Iron stood outside under the stars. John joined her. She looked up and then back at him. There is something I want to give you. He blinked. I didn't bring flowers today. She smiled, took his hand, and placed a small crystal in his palm. It pulsed with light, soft, warm, steady. What is it? A seed, she said. Not from a tree or a plant, from my world. If planted here, it will never die. As long as someone remembers love, it will bloom. John stared at it. I don't know how long I'll live, he said. Maybe another year, maybe less. I know, she whispered. But it's not about how long you live. It's about what you leave behind. He looked into her eyes. And what if I leave you behind? You never could, she said, because now I'm part of this place, part of your story, and you're part of mine. That night, John planted the crystal under the largest tree in the garden. The soil shimmered where it touched. He looked up at Erin. Even forever wouldn't be enough, he said. She smiled, kissed his forehead, and whispered, Then we will make every moment count. And the stars above, perhaps still listening, blinked a little brighter. The seasons on Rhea 9 changed slowly. The twin suns moved a little lower in the sky. The air grew cooler. The leaves in the garden turned pale blue, then soft silver. Iron stood beside the tree where John had planted the crystal. A strange flower had grown from it, shimmering softly, shaped like a star. Its petals moved with the breeze as if breathing. John came out of the cabin holding 2 warm mugs. He handed one to Iron and sat beside her. It's blooming faster than I expected, he said. It listens to your heart, Iron replied, and your heart is full. He smiled. Full because of you. John's health was not what it once was. Some mornings, his hands trembled. Some nights, he didn't sleep well. But he never complained. Not once. Erin saw the signs. She had seen this pattern in 1,000 galaxies before, the signs of a body slowly preparing to let go, but this time it hurt her deeply. Not because of what would end, but because of how full their life had become. She wished she could slow the stars again, just once more. John noticed her silence. Something's on your mind, he said. She looked at him. Time is short. He nodded slowly. Yes, but I'm not ready. He took her hand gently. You've already given me more than I ever dreamed. I used to be alone in the dark. Now, I have light, she whispered. I'm scared to lose you. And I'm not afraid, he said, because you're the kind of story that never ends. A few days later, a ship entered the sky. It was quiet, smooth, sleek. No weapons, no warning. Erin stepped outside, alert but calm. The ship landed just beyond the hill. From it stepped a being of silver light. Its body flowed like water, tall and glowing. but its presence was peaceful. John stood beside Irene. "Is it one of yours?" She nodded slowly. "An old messenger. I didn't call it. It came on its own." The being spoke without sound, only light and feeling. A message that Irene understood in her mind. "You are needed. The balance must return. Your time here is complete." Irene closed her eyes. She answered in silence from her heart. "Not yet. He is still breathing. And where he breathes, I belong." The being bowed its head, and then it left, without pressure, without force, just understanding. John looked at her. "You turned it away." "I chose to stay." He touched her cheek. "Then I'll keep breathing, just for you." Weeks passed. The flower from the crystal had spread roots through the garden. It lit the paths at night like a lantern. Birds and animals gathered around it without fear. The whole valley began to change, greener, warmer, calmer, as if Irene's presence had become part of the soil itself. John's body grew weaker, but his heart remained strong. Each evening, Irene read to him. Sometimes stories of Earth, sometimes stories of her galaxies. He would listen with a soft smile, eyes closed, fingers gently wrapped around hers. One night, he whispered, "If I go first, will you still stay here?" She nodded. "For a time." "And after that?" She looked at the stars. "Then I will carry your story across the stars. In every place I visit, I will speak of the man who taught me love." One morning, Irene woke up and knew something had changed. John was lying in bed, peaceful, his face calm, but his breath had stopped. She didn't cry. Not right away. She sat beside him, held his hand for a long time, and then whispered, "Thank you." She placed a small light stone on his chest, the same kind used in her world to guide souls through starlight. "I will find you again," she said softly, "in another time, another sky. You and I are not bound by one life." The funeral was quiet. Irene buried John beneath the glowing tree in the garden. His name was carved in soft metal, placed beside the roots. John, the man who taught the stars to stay still. The garden bloomed brighter. The wind became softer. The entire outpost felt alive. For weeks, Irene stayed. She walked the hills, touched the machines they had fixed together, read from their shared journal, and finally, when the stars above called once more, she answered. She stepped aboard her silent ship. Before she left, she placed something in the garden. The second, crystal. It glowed beside the first. She whispered, "One day, when the time is right, a traveler will find this place. They will ask, 'What happened here?' And the wind will whisper our names." Years turned into centuries. The outpost faded. The machines fell quiet, but the garden remained. The star-shaped flowers never stopped blooming, and in the distance, across galaxies, stories were told. Stories of a planet called Rhea 9, of a human who taught kindness to a being made of light, and of love that didn't end with time, because even forever wasn't long enough.